Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to our shelf tours. This is Shelf Tour 33, and it's Ghost Stories slash Witchcraft slash Horror shelf number 2. And we continue on with sort of anthologies of ghost stories. This one's slightly, it's 50 great ghost stories, edited by John Canning by Bonanza Books. 1971, and a lot of this there are some, if I remember right, I haven't read it all, but a lot of it is telling about ghost tales, so they're not specifically like the other one. There are some that are, I believe, ghost stories, but then it starts out like Ghosts of Ancient Egypt. And Hauntings Royal, Chased by Prehistoric Horsemen. So it's a bit of sort of telling tales of areas of ghost stories as well as some ghost stories themselves. And then here's another one that's another sort of poorly made one. It's a Bloomsbury Books. This is not the greatest of condition. It's newsprint, and it's browning quite heavily. But it's edited by J.A. Cudden, and as I say, Bloomsbury Books, 1984. And again, it's like all the others. There's the well-trodden path for a lot of them, but then there's a few unique ones in there. So, and I have some space for it at the moment, so these I'll keep for now. And I've got to go through and correlate to make sure what I have and don't have in other ones, and whether I can part with that one, and depending on how good the other ones that are unique to it are. Here's the Times Anthology of Ghost Stories. It's Jonathan Cape, 1975, and I believe most of these are in other ones. Oh, maybe not, because you see, you got Paul Theroux, Dengue Fever, Julian Barnes. So there's some newer ones that may or may not be in other anthologies. And here's an Oddman's old book without a dust jacket. That was picked up by a friend of mine from my collection here. Jeffrey Palmer and Noel Lloyd, illustrated by Roel Fries. This is more or less telling ghost stories, ghost tales from different areas, like all over the world. You got England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, France, and it goes all the way to high seas, America, Martinique, Australia, China, and it's just telling stories, but it's quite well illustrated. There's some interesting illustrations in here, so that's quite good. Even though it's very rough, but it was free to me, I think it was, or very, very, very cheaply. This was a newer one, I believe. Classic Tales of Horror and Suspense by Lisa Mortran, edited by and Leslie S. Klinger. Leslie S. Klinger did the annotated volumes of Dracula and Frankenstein. So that was the thing that prompted me to get this, and it's published by Pegasus Books, 2019, and it's got a lot of the same ones in: Nathaniel Hawthorne, Poe, Elizabeth Stewart Phelps, Wilkie Collins, Mark Twain, A Ghost Story, Arthur Machen, The Substitute, Georgia Wood Pangborn. So there's quite a few of the usual suspects in here, but also some other ones. Now we get to Christmas Carol, Ghost Story. And this is the Annotated Christmas Carol by Michael Patrick Hearn. I haven't gone through this yet. I usually read the Christmas Carol every Christmas. Last year I didn't get around to reading it for some reason. And this is originally done in 1976 and redone in 2004. And it's exactly what it says. It goes through the text, and it's annotated. and it's got some fabulous illustrations in it. And here is the Christmas Carol again. It's the original manuscript edition, so that'll be an interesting comparison. And this was done 2017 by W.W. Norton and Company. And here's a hardcover. It's got a bit damaged at the bottom of the jacket. It's hardcover Christmas Carol by Another Christmas Books by Oxford University Press, edited with an introduction notes by Robert Douglas Fairhurst. And it's third printing from 2006, first published, so this is the third printing. And then I've got the requisite Penguin Christmas Carol and other Christmas writings. This is usually the one I read from every Christmas. Now we get into a sort of ghost novel, which I don't have too many. I don't hardly have any. This is Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, introduced by Guillermo del Toro. I've shown this series before. I've never read this, but I bought it as part of that 6 volumes horror Penguin collection. It has black all around, stained on the edges. And it was done in 2013? Or is it? Yeah, 2013, I think. It's difficult to see. But yeah, so that'll be fun to read. Now we get into more nonfiction about ghosts. Medieval ghost stories. It's Boydell. It's composed and edited by Andrew Joines. Bordeaux Press, 2001. And it's exactly what it says. It is description of medieval ghosts. It's got collections from Bede and other writers of the time. And here's Gaelic stories, ghost stories. Tales of Supernatural from Scotland by Sorche Nick Leolas. Bodley Head. And 1965. And it's illustrated, spot illustrations. And it's just, a description of Scottish ghosts. I never really thought this out. It might be a bit difficult to reach some of these. Here we go. Ghosts, A Natural History, 500 Years of Searching for Spooks. Proof, sorry. Roger Clark. And it's 2014. This is the American printing, St. Martin's Press. This one here I got, because I saw it on BookTube. And I meant fully well to read it when I got it, but things sort of got away from me, and I never got around to reading it yet. It's Ghostland, In Search of a Haunted Country by Edward Parnell. And it looks fantastic. It's 2019. In the late 30s, Edward Parnell found himself trapped in a recurring nightmare of a family tragedy. For comfort, he turned to his bookshelves, back to the ghost stories that obsessed him as a boy, and to the writers through the ages who have attempted to confront what comes after death. In Ghostland, Parnell goes in search of sequestered places of the British Isles, our lonely moors and moss-covered cemeteries, our stark shores and our folkloric woodlands. So it sounds fantastic. Now we move into witchcraft with the how to identify, interrogate a witch. The Hammer of the Witches, the Malleus Maleficarum. And this is a complete translation in paperback form from the Cambridge University Press. First published 2009. This is 2010 reprint. And it's just fantastic. It's a bit hard going, but it's just fantastic. And this was used in sort of the Well, it says it was published 1486 to 1487, and the standard medieval text on witchcraft in it has remained in print throughout the early modern period. So that is just a fantastic one. I'd love to have it in hardcover, but I think it was a little too pricey at the time. And there's Maleficarum, Witchcraft and Witch Hunting in the West by Gordon Napier, more historical, but witch referring to the witch's hammer. Amberley, 2017, says Europe in 1500s and 1600s when as an ascending, expanding civilization poised to become globally dominant and destined to produce the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution. Confident, mercantile republics and opulent monarchs alike seemed to be flourishing, but it was also a devil-haunted society. Witches and imps were not merely the stuff of stories used by mothers to frighten their children into obedience. Many people believed in a real conspiracy of witches, a league with the coven-hooved devil flying on broomsticks, having familiar spirits and casting harmful spells. People from all classes, from peasants to kings, attributed calamities to malevolent witchcraft, and anyone, though it was of course mostly women, could be suspected of being a witch. Witch hunts flared up, particularly in German lands, mass persecutions culminating in burnings, seemingly insane and monstrous acts of societal self-mutilation on a grand scale were accepted as acts of faith, justice, and collective self-defiance. So that's what that's about. And here's another sort of compendium of history of witchcraft. It's magic in witchcraft in the West from antiquity to present. It is by David S. J. Collins, S.J. Society of Jesuits for this is the Cambridge History of, and this was put out or published in 2015, and it's just essays. It's a great introduction to the whole subject, and it can be read from cover to cover or as essays, and it's got great bibliographical material to supplement and to continue reading on each subject. Now, I'm going to have to move the phone here, the camera a bit, so bear with me. And I'm coming to a set here. I'm missing one volume, but I'll grab them all out. It is it's Witchcraft and Magic in Europe. It's a set of 6 books, yeah. I'm missing one volume. And it's a history, it just literally, as it says, History of Magic and Witchcraft. It's by, this is Penn University, Pennsylvania Press. There's a couple imprints here because I've been piecing them together. This was published in 2001, and it is, I thought this was all essays, but they are essays. Each part is sort of like a long essay. And this is Biblical and Pagan Societies, Frederick H. Kryler and Mary Louise Thompson, edited by Bank, Alcaro, and Stuart Clark. So that's the first volume. And this is, I don't have them in order here. This is volume 6. Sorry, I thought I had them in order. But this is by the Athlon Press, which is the UK version of it. And it's just History of Witchcraft and Magic in Europe, volume 6, the 20th century. Willem de Belcourt, Ronald Hutton, and Jean Lafontaine. And this was published in 1999. And yeah, it's the 20th century, so let's say it's out of order here. This is Ancient Greece and Rome. It's Athlon as well. And it's Valerie Flint, Richard Gordon, George Luck, Daniel Ogden, the Athlon Press, 1999. And yeah, volume 2. I think it's the Middle Ages. Yes, it's the third volume that I'm missing, the Middle Ages, which I haven't got yet, which I will need to rectify at some point, once I find a cheap enough one. And this is volume 4, Athlon Press again, 2002. It's the period of the witch trials, from like 1500s to 1600s. I'm not sure when it goes up to fully, sort of mid to late 17th century, I believe. This 2002, and it's Bengt Ankerloo, Stuart Clark, and William Monther. And volume 5, the 18th and 19th centuries, Athlon Press again, 1999. Marjorie Giswalt Hofstra, Brian P. Levack, and Roy Porter. Definitely not pronouncing her name correctly, but. And yeah, that's that. And here's The Witches, Salem, 1692, Stacy Schiff, Pulitzer Prize winning author of Cleopatra. This is an excellent book. It was published, this is the American edition, Little Brown and Company, 2015. And it's just, it's a one volume of everything you need to know, basically, about the Salem witch trials. It's fantastic. And here's The British Witch. I haven't read this one yet. P.J. Maxwell Stewart. It's The British Witch, a biography. Published in 2014 and published by Amberley. And it's quite substantial. It's over 400 pages. I picked it up as a remainder because of the subject matter. And here's Witches and Warlocks. By Philip W. Sargent. Introduction by Arthur Macon. And it's Hutchinson and Company Publishers. It has quite a fantastic frontispiece. And it was published 1936. I haven't read that yet. So there ends shelf 2 of our ghosts slash witchcraft slash supernatural slash horror. And I'll be back with the final shelf, shelf 3. Take care, BookTube.